Hello and welcome to I Talk to Ghosts. Grab your mugwort and mullein because tonight we are taking a stroll through some moonlit graveyards together. I'm your haunted host Jennifer, and I have collected for you some ghostly tales that take place in cemeteries and graveyards. Do you know the difference, by the way? Graveyards are located on church grounds, and cemeteries are not. Either way, they are both pretty notorious for ghostly activity, and I have stories that illustrate exactly that. Also, later in the episode, I will showcase a new spirit reading that I held for my podcast guest, Melissa. And please continue to haunt this episode a little longer because later this evening, I will share a message from the spirits that may be specifically for you. How does that work? Think of it as a mini seance where a spirit has the opportunity to share a message with someone connected to listening to the podcast. And this message might be for you. But for now, let's wander around the tombstones. The spooky begins now. It was the spring of 1993, and after attending a high school football game, two of my closest friends and I met up with some girls and decided, for lack of a better idea, we would go down to the graveyard, which was rumored to have glowing tombstones. My friends and I had already seen the glowing tombstones, which were caused by a red neon light that reflected off the finish of the headstones. Truly, it was an eerie sight, to say the least. Stories spread about the graveyard, with various versions as to why the headstones shone with such a color. Variations included a young man killed by a gang, buried under the suspected tombstones, and a young woman whose death was in question. The usual stories that accompany strange phenomena. Since I had already seen the tombstones at least a dozen times before, I thought it would be fun to take the girls there because they wouldn't know what we knew exactly. We pulled up to the fence on the south side of the graveyard, the usual spot, because it was the only angle from which the stones glowed. After we parked and got out, we stood for a few seconds outside the fence, daring each other to go in. Of course, no one dared. I dared my friend Don to hop the fence, knowing he had never been frightened of anything in his life. Strangely, he didn't reply. I looked over at him to find him staring into the graveyard, as pale as the full moon above us. I turned again to see what was drawing his attention, and then I saw it. Around the tombstone that glowed red stood at least 4 or 5 figures in white. Each was so bright we could almost see features from at least 100 yards away. The figures stood motionless, showing no movement or even reflecting the red light of the tombstone. Don and I exchanged wide-eyed glances while sprinting for the truck. The others followed shortly afterwards, although they hadn't seen what we had. I went back recently to the old haunting grounds with my girlfriend, just to see if the tombstones would still glow. The neon light has been removed, and there was no trace of the glowing tombstones, but I still got nervous driving by. I still try to convince myself that it never really happened, but I know it did. Have you ever been to one of those cemeteries that are so far back up in the country that no one ever goes there anymore? Well, not far from where I grew up, there was this old cemetery. We had to go up a one-lane dirt road surrounded by woods on both sides for about 2 miles. You would have to drive in the middle of the road because both sides were deep ditches. Luckily, this night was a full moon. I don't think just headlights would have been enough to see the way. My sister and my cousin got out of the car first. I was almost too scared to get out, but it was either go with them or sit in the car by myself until they got back. My sister wanted to go to the cemetery to look at the names on the headstones. That was the whole reason for going up there. Those two were always adventurous. I was the little sister who always wanted to tag along. We finally got up to the cemetery, and there was a big iron gate that separated the grounds from the woods. Also, there were big weeping willow trees blowing in the wind. Some of the branches were low enough to scrape nearby headstones. As we climbed over the iron gate, we heard soft music playing. You've got to remember where we were, with nobody around for miles. But that didn't stop them from wanting to look at names on tombstones. With the full moon shining, it made everything look eerie. My sister pointed at a headstone, and when I looked, there was a small child peeking from behind it. It was there 1 minute and gone the next. I was ready to leave. Luckily, it spooked my sister so bad she was ready to go too. As we were walking away, the soft music started playing again. We broke into a run, jumping over the iron gate. The next day, Dad heard us talking about it. He said he had heard the same story from other people. Needless to say, we never visited that cemetery again. I was very ill as a child, spending a lot of time in and out of the hospital. During one stay, my father and his brothers, who all lived in the same county, got together to build me a playhouse, using materials appropriated from some houses being torn down. This playhouse had 3 rooms, cabinets and counters, windows that opened and closed, and Dutch doors. It was shingled and sided. It had a nice front porch and its own landscaping. There were even flower boxes under the windows. We lived right next door to a cemetery, and the cemetery's coffin maker made me a table and 2 chairs, and sized down an old love seat for the house's parlor. It was truly a little girl's dream house, but it happened to be situated right up against a chain link fence that separated the front of the cemetery from my grandparents' property. Right on the other side of the fence were 3 small tombstones. The names and dates showed that they were 2 girls and a boy who had all died some 50 years before, and all under the age of 10. It was soon apparent that I was not the only child playing in my playhouse. Dandelions would show up on the table in the morning, and the dolls would be tucked in or moved around. Instead of teaching me to be afraid, my family encouraged me to accept whatever happened, saying that these children never had a chance to play as I did. Despite getting sick often, I wouldn't consider myself a solitary child. But I never felt alone when my living playmates couldn't come and play. If you love the I Talk to Ghosts podcast, consider supporting the show. Visit my Patreon page at patreon.com/italktoghosts. There you'll find special rewards and perks, including previews of upcoming ghost stories and behind-the-scenes details. Thank you so much for supporting the show. Welcome back to I Talk to Ghosts. My guest today for a spirit reading is Melissa. Melissa, welcome, and thank you for being part of the podcast. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm good. Thanks for having me.
I am super excited to have you, and I'm really excited to go through my notes that I have, and we can continue to talk outside of these notes too. Don't ever feel like you can only give yes or no answers. Consider this a conversation between 3 or more people, and the more energy you give to it, I think that really helps contribute. So don't feel like it's like, oh, I can't say anything, or, oh, she needs to say it first, or anything. I've got plenty of notes, and other things are going to come into. Every reading is different, and let's just see what there is to see. Okay?
Sounds good.
One main impression I was getting was someone you lost that you were connected to was really a nurturing source of emotion for you. Can you connect this with someone who's passed away?
My grandmother.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, all right. That makes sense. So did you have a bit of a friendship relationship with her?
Oh, totally. Yeah. I grew up with them very, very close to my grandparents. And my grandmother just passed away in August.
Oh, I'm so sorry for your loss.
Thank you. Thanks for that.
I was definitely getting a friend, almost pure energy. You guys operated on the same level. She's not coming through as like this matronly above you type. Like she really wanted to relate to you on your level. Is that something that you can confirm?
Yeah, definitely. She wasn't somebody who was like always yelling at you or anything. She was more so like just so supportive and happy all the time for you. And
I was getting the impression that she wants to give you signs, like put things in your path and symbology, and she's acknowledging that. Have you experienced that?
Yes. The number 3 has really been popping up a lot, and I know 333 in a sequence is like a huge thing from people who have passed on. And ever since like the week that she was passing, she was in hospice, so I knew that she was gonna pass. It wasn't like a sudden thing. And I had been praying, kind of like talking to my grandfather who had passed in 2009, and just telling him like, please give me a sign that you're there and that you're ready to take grandma with you.
Aww.
And I swear to you, I've told my whole family, a bunch of friends and everything. Some of them probably think I'm crazy, but I truly have never felt so sure about energy and stuff as when that was all happening, because I started seeing 333 everywhere. Like it was insane to me, and I think that definitely is a sign from her.
The first thing she showed me was this emotional support that she was. And then there was also, I was getting the sense this was an arduous challenge. The third thing she said was, I'm giving her signs. And those synchronicities are true.
Awesome.
Believe in it, really do. And when it feels right, we get this input, we get this physical input, and then we get this emotional input from it, right? And then we sit there and we question it. When we respond and we put our energy back in it, that connection strengthens.
Right.
Okay. Was she a list maker? I was getting the impression that someone in your family made a lot of lists.
Well, I make so many lists. But
Okay.
but she wrote down everything. Like after she passed, me and my mom were going through some stuff, and my mom found so many like books, and she wrote down everything about anything that happened in her life and the things that meant something to her, like crystal or like
Mhm.
different pieces she had. So yeah, I don't know if I'd say a list, but she took down notes and stuff about everything. So I guess
Okay.
you could kind of say a list.
Yeah, like to explain what I saw. I saw a lot of writing and
Yes.
just, I guess you could say it's categorizing by
Mhm.
how you're describing it. So I wrote down list maker and I put like this arrow next to it. Like this was a big highlight. This meant
Mhm.
something,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Wow.
That makes sense. Okay. The other thing I got the impression was she liked to make things perfect, not in a control way, but in a comforting way, like in a cozy way. Like she was the type of person who was like, I want this to be just so. What
Yes.
did I write? Think everything is as it should be. Is a quote that I wrote down. So it's almost like that could have been a life motto, or it could be a message that she's giving you now, that everything is as it should be. Does that sound like her personality?
Yeah, I think that I don't know, she just seemed very comforting, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Like never made me really worry about situations. Just kind of was like, "Oh, honey." Like I remember asking her, "Are you scared of when I was younger? Are you scared of dying?"
Mm.
And she's like, "No, I'm not. Like, when it's the time to go, it's the time." Like she was just very relaxing about stuff even though she had anxiety and everything,
Mhm.
but didn't really make me feel that about situations.
In a way, it was a form of comfort, so it's like everything is the way it should be,
Mhm.
and that's a sweet message in itself. Okay, I was being shown a woman showed me like doing this, and to me it was like she was taking off her earring to talk on the phone. I don't know if you were ever around your grandmother to that she had that she would have to do that to talk on the phone.
She talked on the phone all the time to people. Like that was her joy, is calling her friends, and one of her best friends was her best friend since they were 2. And she lived back on the other side of the country, so they would talk all the time, and she always wore earrings too. I don't know if she took them off to talk, but she always wore her earrings.
Did she have a cell phone or did she still use the house
She
phone?
still used the house phone.
All right.
We got her a cell phone, but she always had the house phone.
Yeah, I'm asking because I saw the big handle, right? And
Oh,
and like that was the era of you take off your earring to
yeah.
talk on the phone. I never see I never see anyone doing that in movies or anything anymore because we're all on cell phones
Mhm.
now, and you can hold it, in a way that
Right.
it doesn't. But like with the old phones,
Yes.
yeah, it was like, okay, let me take off my earring and I'm talking on the phone
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, those chunky phones with like the big earpiece, you totally had to do that.
One other thing, um, did you ever share drinks with her? I was seeing this like holding a mug and like, oh, drinking like
Yes.
tea or coffee.
Uh-huh.
Like she was showing me this, like you guys were bonding over a drink together.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, she was English, not from England, but like her family history was English. So she would have her tea every single day, and when she moved into my parents in the last couple or few weeks that of her life, I would every time I went over there, I went over almost every day, and I would make her a cup of tea. Just she didn't even have to ask for it. I just knew she wanted it. She always had really cool mugs, and we would always have tea or something. That's so funny.
I've got so many notes here. I usually don't have this
Oh, I'm
many.
so excited.
Um, did she dance when she was younger? Like ballroom, or because she was showing me this like A-line dress and kind of twirling with it, and to me that kind of was seemed like dancing to me.
Well, she actually made it to my wedding last January. It's almost been a year, and she made it there, and my dress was an A-line dress, and she usually went to bed so early at like, 6:37, but the wedding was at 6, and then the reception started at 7:30, and she stayed all night and just watched everybody dancing. And
She was showing me like a lot of white and iridescent colors together. Maybe that is part of just the symbology of your wedding.
mhm.
And I was going to ask you if she ever had a angel figurine.
She did in her car when she had her car.
Okay.
Oh, and yeah, my grandfather made two wood. My grandfather was a woodworker, and he made two beautiful angels out of wood for her for Christmas.
I was getting the impression of passing along the message of take care of the car.
They did give me, when I turned 16, they gave me their car, one of their cars,
Mm-hmm.
that my grandfather took such good care of. They had it since I was a baby, and when I turned 16, there was 30,000 miles on it. So in 16 years. So maybe that, and then my grandfather was always somebody who would take care of his car and want it, like
Okay.
the upkeep and everything. So
One other last thing. When I was doing my meditation, I got the impression of like someone doing this to me. I
mhm.
don't know if this was like a standard greeting that your grandmother would kind of take your head in her hands.
Um, she did touch your face sometimes, like, well, my face. And she always, her nickname for me since I was little was Pretty Face. She would always say, "Hey, Pretty
Okay.
Face." So
Okay.
maybe it's
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That is so wonderful. Yeah, it was very much this. And I'm like, okay, what is this?
Oh my gosh.
Oh, okay. I do have a message for you to that I want to share. And it says, take time for self-care. Okay. That they care about you. Take your time, do that self-care and take all the time you need. But from there, make some plans. Like,
Okay.
what, does that make sense? So it's like you need some self-care, take care of you, take all the time you need. But after that, really like dream
Yeah.
and set a goal for yourself and commit to it because they know that you can do it. But
Okay.
they do feel like there's this self-care element to go in there first. And
Okay.
that, things aren't always easy, but you're making the right choices. Make sure that you've got the self-care routine in there. It's never selfish. It's absolutely necessary. And then from there, they really see you being encouraged to set a long-term goal for yourself. Like, what do you want to do? What do you want to accomplish? And then
Okay.
just believe in it and commit to it. And yeah, go forward. There's something you need to do. And they're just encouraging you to see yourself, like really see yourself
Okay.
for who you are, how you shine, everything you're capable of. And just really want to encourage you to go forward with this future goal. So is that something that resonates with you?
Yeah, I do have some plans that I'd like to put in place when the time is right.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and she always would ask me, like, I have a almost 7-year-old nephew, and she would always ask me and my now husband, we've been together almost 7 years, and she just loved him. And she was like, "When are you gonna have babies? When are you gonna have babies?" So I was like, "Well, we want to get married first." So now we've been married almost a year, and she always, every time I saw her, would ask about, when am I gonna have another grand or great grandbaby, because I'm not gonna be here forever. And I felt really,
Oh.
really bad about that. Like when she started going downhill, I always wanted her to be able to see my kids. Um, but she didn't get to, but I know she will when the time
Mm-hmm.
is right. But I think maybe that is her telling me, take care of yourself and get your anxiety and stuff under control and get to where you need to be
Mm-hmm.
before that there's no rush
Yeah.
now.
Absolutely. And just, I do think she sees you, and she is going to be able to witness and even lend her energy towards all of that. And, she will be around her
Yeah.
grandkids, and there is no pressure there. The first thing she said was, that self-care element and just supporting yourself, and, self-support is just so key. And from there, it's like, yeah, set that goal.
Mhm.
When I see long-term goals, for some reason, it always seems like 2 years for me. It's like
Yeah.
2 years out from here. So yeah, this didn't seem like it was like well, relax this weekend, but then get on it.
Right, right.
Well, thank you so much for meeting
Thank
with me
you.
today. And this has been absolutely lovely. And I'm just really excited that the connections were made for you today. And it's
Definitely.
just and your family seems so positive. And, you've got a network together there, and it's just wonderful to see.
Thank you. I really appreciate you doing this.
Are you enjoying your ghostly visit? If so, please follow, like, comment, and share. The ghosts may be talkative, but they are lousy at marketing, so every click helps. Tell your friends, and please leave a kind review so that others might join us. The spirits and I thank you. Welcome back to I Talk to Ghosts. I have a special spirit message tonight for someone listening to the podcast. I've grounded and meditated a bit. The spirit that is coming through this evening is showing me that they were very important to you. This was your creative partner, your life partner, kind of your sun and your moon, and you gained so much inspiration and passion from this person, and I can tell that this is fundamentally a really big loss for you. So my heart goes out to you with this devastating event. And the person who passed, they're showing me that you would identify them, because not just by how I just described them, but in practical life, they had a tumbler, like a cup that they drank from every day and always carried it around with them and always had that with them. And you probably have this. Maybe you even keep it on your desk. And this person also had a very distinct laugh. And it just lit you up inside whenever you heard it. The message tonight they want to give is just to gently encourage you to continue on. They are still with you, and any inspiration or life that you felt you drew from the person you lost, it's still within you, and your inspiration and your intuition are your own. And personally, I want to say, grieve. It's okay to grieve and feel what you need to feel. And they want you to realize that your own life force is so valuable and what they loved about you. And they want to encourage you with that, and just eventually recover and carry on, if that makes sense. Because you're brilliant and they love you. I think I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you. Thank you for giving me this moment, and I'm so moved to deliver this message to someone, because it's important. It's really important. Thank you. And with that, dear listener, we've reached the end of this episode of I Talk to Ghosts. I hope you've enjoyed the stories I've shared with you this evening, and in particular, if you have a graveyard or cemetery story that you would like to share, I would love to hear it. In the meantime, wherever you wander off to in this world or the next, just remember, come back and visit with me. Have a lovely evening and good night.